You know, when we think about the period after the year 1100, we often get this picture of the Dark Ages, right? Knights, castles, a time we kind of assume was just stuck. But what if that's totally wrong? What if this was actually one of the most chaotic, most transformative periods in all of human history? We're going to explore 3 centuries of absolute turmoil, bookended by 2 massive events: the quiet search for a lost book and the explosive fall of an ancient empire. Let's dive in. So imagine for a second that everything the ancient Greeks knew, I'm talking science, mathematics, philosophy, just vanished from your world. For centuries, that's pretty much what happened in Western Europe. But here's the thing, it wasn't destroyed. It was being kept safe, studied, and even improved upon in the great libraries of the Islamic world. And this is the story of what happens when that lost knowledge finally comes crashing back.
So our story doesn't kick off with a huge battle or a king's decree. No, it starts much quieter than that. It begins with a quest for knowledge, an intellectual spark that would, eventually, set the world on fire.
Okay, so meet our first key player, Gerard of Cremona. It's the 1140s, and if you're a scholar in Italy who wants to read the single most advanced astronomy book ever written, Ptolemy's Almagest, well, it wasn't like you could just pop down to the local library. No way. You had to go to the frontier, to a place where Christian and Muslim cultures were literally living side by side. And for Gerard, that place was Toledo, Spain.
And what Gerard found in Toledo wasn't just one book, it was a gold mine. He and a whole bunch of other scholars like him unearthed thousands of texts. We're talking Aristotle, Euclid, Ptolemy, all the greats, meticulously preserved and translated into Arabic. So what did they do? They started translating them again, this time into Latin. And in doing so, they reintroduced a whole universe of forgotten ideas back into Europe. This quiet, academic work, it was the first tremor of a coming earthquake.
But here's the contrast. While guys like Gerard were hunched over their manuscripts, carefully translating, the world right outside the library walls was anything but quiet. It was a place of just unbelievable brutality and one crisis after another.
And the chaos was happening everywhere, all at once. So while Gerard is busy translating in Spain, a warlord named Zengi is carving out a Turkish empire in Syria. At the exact same time, England is tearing itself to pieces in a civil war so awful, they just called it the Anarchy. And, as if the man-made violence wasn't enough, nature decided to unleash its own brand of terror.
I mean, listen to this. This account just captures the raw brutality of the age. It's from someone who actually watched the Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Becket, get murdered by the king's knights inside his own cathedral. In this world, literally nowhere was safe. Politics was a blood sport.
230,000. That's the estimated number of people killed in a single earthquake near Aleppo back in 1138. Think about that. It's one of the deadliest natural disasters in recorded history. So whether it was war or politics or just the ground shaking, life was incredibly fragile. Society felt like it was always on the brink of collapse. Now, it's really easy for us to just get bogged down in the chaos happening in Europe, right? But if we do that, we're missing a huge piece of the puzzle. Because at this very moment, the real centers of wealth, power, and culture, well, they were often somewhere else entirely.
Okay, so take a look at this. On the left, you've got King John of England, the guy famous for losing a bunch of land and getting forced by his own nobles to sign the Magna Carta. Now look at the right. That's his contemporary, Sundiata Keita. While John was struggling, Sundiata was busy uniting clans, crushing his rivals, and founding the legendary Mali Empire, taking control of the insanely profitable trans-Saharan trade routes. And that trade, it was built on one thing above all else: gold. This description from a writer at the time just says it all. He said gold grew there like carrots grow in our fields. I mean, wow. The wealth of West African empires like Mali was the stuff of legends. This wasn't some backwater. It was a global economic powerhouse. And it's not just about wealth. It's about the sheer scale of these places. In the 14th century, Cairo, the capital of the Mamluk Sultanate in Egypt, had around 600,000 people. It was a sprawling metropolis that made London and Paris, combined, look like small towns. It was the heart of a vast empire controlling trade from east to west. So yeah, while Europe was fractured, other parts of the world were absolutely thriving. But then, a new crisis started to brew, one that no army could fight and no amount of gold could stop. It was something universal, something that hit everyone, from the poorest farmer in England to the richest lord in France: the weather. The weather itself turned against them. See,
For centuries, Europe had it pretty good, climate-wise. It was a period of unusually warm, stable weather. And what does that mean? More food. And more food means more people. The population of France swelled to over 17 million. The continent was full to bursting, and the whole system depended on the good weather holding out. It didn't.
It all started in the summer of 1315. It started raining, and it just didn't stop. Crops rotted in the fields. The next year, just as bad. Then disease ripped through the livestock. In a single city, Ypres, 10% of the entire population starved to death. After a short break, the rains came back, followed by a winter so cold it broke records. This wasn't just a bad harvest. This was a continental collapse of agriculture that lasted for years.
And this quote, it just brings the horror of it all right down to a human level. The Great Famine was a catastrophe on a scale that is genuinely hard for us to wrap our heads around. It shook kingdoms to their core, shattered communities, and left this deep, deep psychological scar on an entire generation. Which brings us to our second great bookend. We started with the search for ancient knowledge. We're going to end with the destruction of the very city that had guarded that knowledge for 1,000 years. We're talking about the fall of Constantinople. The Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II was a genius. He was methodical. He wasn't just going to charge the city. He was going to strangle it. First, he built a huge fortress on the Bosphorus and gave it the chilling name Bogazkesin, the throat cutter, so he could control every ship going in or out. Then he ordered the biggest, baddest cannons the world had ever seen. The plan was simple and brutal. Cut the city off completely, and then pound its ancient walls into rubble. 400 kilograms. That's about 900 pounds. That was the weight of a single stone cannonball fired from Mehmed's biggest cannon. This wasn't just a weapon. It was a statement. It was a symbol of a brand new age, where new technology could literally shatter 1,000 years of history. For a millennium, those legendary walls had stood firm. They had turned back army after army, siege after siege, but they had never faced anything like this new artillery. After a punishing 53-day siege, on May 29, 1453, the Ottoman forces finally broke through. The last Roman emperor died fighting in the streets, and the city that had been a beacon for 1,000 years was gone. The fall of Constantinople sent shockwaves across Europe, but it also sent scholars and artists fleeing west. And you know what they carried with them? The very same Greek manuscripts that Gerard of Cremona had been searching for all those centuries before. So the end of one world became the spark for the next. The chaos, the violence, the rediscovery of this era, it wasn't just an ending. It was the crucible that forged the world we live in today.